Okay, welcome to the AP review packet. I'm going to go through each one of these topics and do one video about each one of the topics, and I'm going to type into the doc a little bit here. I would encourage you to do that yourself, to have your own copy so that when you're working through this, that you know what you know and what you don't know, and then you can come to review sessions and ask questions if you need them. But for each of these, I'm going to type an answer, but I'm also going to kind of explain what that answer means a little bit here. As we go through it. So let's get started. Economics is the study of the problem of scarcity. And that word scarcity is really defined in number 2. It's also the study of how people make decisions about production and about consumption. So what we would say is that it's really focused on the level of decision making related to marginal analysis. Should I do one more of these, or should I consume one more of these? Let me get rid of some of these here a little bit. So let's go ahead and jump into this. The second question is, what is scarcity? Scarcity is the problem of unlimited wants / needs but having limited resources, right? So we can't satisfy all of our wants and needs given the problem of limited resources. We can't have everybody have everything they could ever want because of scarcity. So if you watch Star Trek like myself, you know that they have a replicator that basically can create anything, any food, anything they want. And so they've solved that problem of scarcity, and it really changes kind of how their economy works. But in the real world, outside of Star Trek, we still face that problem of scarcity. The third question is, what's opportunity cost? And that's what is given up when you make a decision to do something. So it's your next best alternative is another way to say it. And so when we say, what's the opportunity cost of watching this video, it's what you would have done with the time and the effort mentally that you're using instead of doing the video. So it's what you gave up. And who makes decisions in a market economy would be individuals and companies, which are made up of individuals. And so that's really a critical component of a market economy, key to a market economy. It's also the idea of property rights is key to a market economy. So there's really two things about allowing people to make decisions for themselves, and property rights are really key to having a market economy. And that's what we study in terms of economics, is we study a market economy. The role of property rights in a market economy, they create the incentives to make decisions. In other words, we are motivated to go to work. We are motivated to improve our property because we get to reap the bounty of those things. If we work really hard, we get ahead and we get paid more. And so we have more property and we can improve upon it. And a very long time ago, someone said, if you give someone a lease or a rental on a deserted island, in 10 years, it'll look like a deserted island. But if you give someone ownership of a deserted island, then in 10 years, it will become a paradise, right? They'll have improved it. So they create the incentives to make decisions. Now, who makes decisions in a command economy is the government, not people. And we would say that typically when we say the government making those decisions, it would be the government and not concerned with people's individual welfare. So oftentimes we do note that, like in a market economy, we also say and government up here. So it's really like companies and government and individuals. But these are really made up of individuals looking out for individual welfare. In a command economy, it's really a concern of the government, and it's making it for other decisions. So they're very difficult to analyze. Difficult to analyze decision making is what we would say. 4 factors of production are entrepreneurship. So this is intangible. You can't really trade that. But then we have labor or workers, right? We have land, which would be natural resources like oil or lumber or grain. And then we have, of course, capital, which would be machinery and tools and factories, those sorts of things that are used to produce other things. Difference between micro and macro. Micro focuses on individuals and individuals and businesses decisions. And what we would say is that the macroeconomy, right, in terms of macroeconomics, focuses on the entire economy. So it's really a question of like, where do we spend our time in terms of focusing on it? And it may very well be that you'll see questions that ask you to distinguish between these. It's not totally clear to me whether that would be. I'm going to skip number 9 for just a second, answer number 10. Economic growth is, and how is it different from an expansion? Growth is increase in capacity to produce, and an expansion is an increase in how much we produce. So there are distinctions a little bit here that are subtle, but they matter quite a bit. And it's a difference between, like, as I've explained to some students, the capacity of a gas tank is different from how much gas is in it. And so if we said there's economic growth, what we're really saying is that your capacity of your gas tank is bigger, but maybe you're more fuel efficient or something like that. But in terms of expansions and recessions, that's just changes in how much gas is in the tank right now. So now we're going to take a look at a business cycle graph, and we're going to do this here with my pen. I would encourage you with these to maybe draw them on a separate sheet of paper or something. With a business cycle, we relate to, oh, that's terrible. We relate two variables. Okay, so two variables in a business cycle. We have time, that's T, and then we have output. Okay, and that's so over time, what we see is output goes up and down and up and down and stuff like that. And that's kind of how it actually looks. So that's the actual amount of output. And then I'm going to change colors here and say we also have kind of a trend line, and that's the potential level of output. And that represents the idea that sometimes we're producing at the potential, sometimes we're above it, but generally speaking, it represents the capacity of the economy, that idea of how much can we produce. And then I'm going to switch colors one more time here and say that when you have the actual, when it's decreasing, that's what we call a recession, right? When we have a decreasing amount of actual output. And then when we have an increasing, right, that's what we call an expansion. And so between the peak here and the trough, that's a recession. And then once you hit the bottom and start coming back up again and you go to the next peak, that's an expansionary phase. Generally speaking, we say expansions have increased price levels and decreased unemployment. And we would say that recessions have lower price levels and increased unemployment. And again, you can also see that the output value changes. Obviously, during an expansion, you have more output, and during a recession, you have less. So hopefully this helps you with the basics of economics. I'll see you next time.